Here we go. Hi, this is Eric Stromquist. Welcome to Control Talk Now, your smart buildings video cast and podcast for the week ending March 4th, 2018. This is episode 257, where we talk about all things smart controls and smart people. So March is here, it's upon us, and March has come in like a lion, kind of like my host and yours, the man, the myth, the legend, the one, the only. You know him as Kenny Smyers, but his friends call him Kenny. And everybody else calls him Mr. Smyers. Welcome to the show, Mr. Smyers.
Oh, thank you. You can call me Ken. Ken, just don't call, like my brother Jesse used to say, just don't call me late for dinner. Right?
There you go, brother.
But Eric, we got a marvelous show. I'm excited because we're feeling the momentum. There's a lot of industry events going on. There's a lot of great people in our industry celebrating anniversaries, and then we've got two.
Well, hang on. I want to ask you about this because we got to label this show because this is a special show. Like I said, March has come in like a lion. We talk a lot about disruption and smart buildings and what's going on in our industry, and we got three. So either good things come in threes or bad things come in threes, depending on your point of view. You'll know after the show. Incredible guest, Kenny Smyers. We got one that's disrupting with technology. The other two are basically just going to slam down the walls that have everything in silos, and they got different ways of doing that. So stay tuned for that. But what are we going to call this episode? The Good Things Come in Threes episode, or the March Madness episode? What are we going to call it, Big Dog?
Well, March Madness is already taken, so we'll. How about the March trifecta? No, that's not even good.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's going to be a great show. But listen, dude, we got some great interviews coming. So let's do some housekeeping first. Let's get some of the posts down, and let's head straight to the interview. So first of all, dude, do you have any shout-outs this week?
We do indeed, Eric. We've got some great shout-outs. In fact, probably one of our favorite folks. He's a Control Trends winner. He's a great technical support guy. He's moved into the product management and marketing. We have congratulate Christian Lane for 26 years at Johnson Controls, huh?
Hey, congratulations, Chris.
It's a pretty
Chris
good
is one
marker.
of the all-time brilliant, great guys in our industry, does great stuff. So I tell you, one of the great things about this industry, Kenny, is there's so many great people, and Chris Lane's got to be right at the top of that list. So
He sure is. He's smart. He's dedicated, and he's a great speaker. He's a great presenter too, because I've been with him. He's been on our show several times. He's done some tech tips with the Johnson Controls folks. Reminds me a lot of James Johnson from Tritium. He's the well of information that people go to when they get a clarification or nobody else at the table knew the answer. They call up Christian Lane.
Well, they do, and I think behind every great company and every great technology is a Chris Lane or a James Johnson. I mean, we got a ton of them in our industry. Dave Bowman from KMC is another one that comes to mind. So there are a lot of them. But
right. Yep.
Any other shout-outs?
Yeah, we do. We got Bill McGowan. He's from Cisco. I had the pleasure of being on one of the boards, one of the Realcomm Ivicon boards with Bill. Very bright guy for the Cisco Canadian crew. We've got Aaron Hunt celebrating 10 years at the Ray Group LLC. We've got Angie Jarvis had a birthday, March 1st. She's down at the island celebrating her birthday. So congratulations. Happy birthday. Yeah. And then we've got Rocky Moore, who's he used to be with Blue Ridge Technology. He's just celebrated his first year with Automated Logic. And we have, let's see, I think we had one more.
He was with American Automatrix before that. It's that company out of Pittsburgh, right?
Correct. Yeah, very good. Yeah, very good. You got a good memory there. He's and then Elizabeth Schaumann. Elizabeth Schaumann, she's with Henkel Corporation and in Dusseldorf, Germany.
Nice.
Daisy. Okay.
There we go. All right. And so we got a lot of good stuff coming up. Like you mentioned, the Tritium Niagara Summit's coming up. That's going to be in New Orleans. So we got that going. We got Jim Young, Howard Berger, and Lisa Woods and the team got Realcomm IBCon coming up at the Cosmopolitan Hotel in Vegas. And remember, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. What you learn in Vegas, you get to bring back home with you. So that's going to be another great one right there. And, well, Kenny, I tell you what, let's cut straight to the chase. Let's go through some of these posts kind of quickly because I want to leave a lot of time to talk with the three disruptors here.
I'd love to. Let's just start out with
the Trace Disruptors.
Trace Hombres.
Trace Hombres.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, with that's about the only trace I've ever used was Trace Hombres, ZZ Top. Okay, yeah, we got Ken Sinclair's Automated Buildings March 2018 theme, Transparency Transformation, and Ken does not stop. I mean, would you call him the oldest young gun in the league? He's got a mind that's always searching for the new answers. He's putting together a very heavy-duty string of concepts and ideas about we have a chance to reinvent ourselves through the digitalization of our industry and IoT impacts. He's saying that, we actually need to start. It's a great time to redefine our industry and how we think. He said goodbye to proprietary self, mind, and welcome the other mind, the open and transparent self. And he put a picture to try to illustrate that, which is kind of cool. He's fooling around with some of that new photography where it does these double images. But the whole idea is he believes in the digital twin. So at a building, you have the concrete and the walls and the structures and the elevator shafts or whatever, but you also have a digitalized version of that is where things happen. That's where we can take advantage of all our analytics and data.
Oh, so well done. Listen, I got a question for you regarding Ken, because Ken, to me, is like you say, he's an 18-year-old stuck in a 60-something years old's body. But all right, so I want you to go back to England in the 60s when rock and roll becomes the disruptive music in London, England. Okay, which group is Ken Sinclair?
You know what? He does remind me of an old style rock and roll, like Eric Burdon and the Animals, that sort of guy, where he had the tough leather jacket on and the short cropped hair. But that would be somewhere. Let's see, who else?
No, okay. So I'm gonna knock him down for you. Okay, so I think that he is the Who. I think Ken Sinclair would have been the Who, singing that song about my generation. Hope I die before I get old type thing. I think he'd be the Who.
Oh,
I think Jim Young, Realcomm IBCon, him and Howard be like the Beatles. Okay, and hey man, our friend Ron Zimmer, he might be Pink Floyd. And we got who would be our Rolling Stones representative? Maybe Ted Houck and Jason Houck.
Well, what about Bill Duckelberger? You got to get him in there.
Oh, Bill Duckelberger is Steppenwolf, Born to Be Wild. There's no ifs, ands, buts about that, man. Mr. Easy Rider. So,
okay.
Yeah, let us know in comments what you think if you think we got those right. But I definitely think Ken Sinclair be the Who, baby.
Well, you talked about the Beatles and this incredible synchronicity. I just gave my friend is a Beatle fanatic, and when we went and did the EasyIO Scotland trip, and we went to Liverpool, and we traced the Beatles, and we went to Penny Lane. Well, I got to watch the deconstruction of Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. It's a DVD that you watch, and this guy is like a PhD in the Beatles. He's like the most renowned American expert, and he breaks down all the tracks and all the incredible things that the Beatles did when they launched that album. They went in so many different directions. They did all these incredible things that had never been done before with music. The echo chambers that.
Well, I saw that. Yeah, George Martin, man, it was phenomenal.
Right. Oh, so I just happened to touch that chord because I watched it the day before yesterday, and I've already passed it on to somebody else that's a big Beatle fan.
So Pete Townsend Sinclair, if you're listening, we'll probably get you on next week to do the
Pete Townsend. That's cool.
To get you on next week to talk about the March issue of AutomatedBuildings.com. But you don't have to wait till then. You can go check it out now. AutomatedBuildings.com. What do you have up next, Big Dog?
Well, just because Ken, he's going to be a guest speaker and he's a moderator at the 2018 Nordic Smart Building Convention in Helsinki, Finland, June 6th, 7th, 2018. And it's wild that we're getting more global, that Ken's actually going to be a featured moderator there. And, they probably love his posts and his ideas and the way he's focusing and bringing that filtering, all that innovation into, a very sensible delivery. So he was invited to go there, and I'm sure he's going to have a great time. So that, and we roll right forward to the ASHRAE BACnet Committee, Project Haystack and Brick Schema collaborated to provide a unified data semantic modeling solution. Great post. You need to go to Control Trends and dig into this a little bit to find out, because I know all these systems integrators out there are trying to keep track and keep up to date with all the templating and what might likely be the future in analytics is going to be driven by how much templating gets done, how much semantics make the whole dang process easier.
Sounds good. So Mark Peacock, he be the Doors, Jim Morrison.
He would want to have more. Well, that's pretty good, but
yeah, either that or
he would have more longevity, probably.
No, he would. Well, he's just cool like the Doors, but Honeywell would be like
I know
Eric
who he'd
Clapton.
be.
Who would he be?
Who's that singer from the coal mines that never stepped foot in the coal mines, but he had a heck of a voice and he had his own game or his own show, and the women used to throw panties and
Johnny
balls.
Cash?
No.
Oh, Tom Jones.
Yeah.
Tom Jones. There you go.
There we go. Johnny Cash, he was throwing microphones and guitars down at the crowd. They didn't throw things back
So
at
who
him.
we got angry in the industry that could be our angry person? We'll come up with that. So yeah, we probably ought to have a contest, which is your personalities from today's age and and put them back to the 60s rock and roll. So anyway, all right, what's up next?
Well, who bounce across the board here to Honeywell appoints Roger Fraden as chairman of the board of Home Spinoff. So that's kind of an interesting title, but Honeywell announced that it appointed the former longtime company executive Roger Fraden as the chairman of the board for the Homes and Global Distribution business spinoff announced last year. Fraden will start immediately to help bring Homes transition into a separate standalone business. So what about that?
Well, no, we knew about this. We reported this a while back now, and it's great. Honeywell's already in the spirit of things because they've already said we're Frank Sinatra, man, chairman of the board, right? But Roger Fraden, he this is his second go around with building controls. And the first time he came in, boy, they just really upgraded the product line. That was when the spiders and all those stuff started coming out. So Roger is a very, very capable guy, very sort of hands-on, customer focused. I remember meeting back when he came the first time through, and he met people, he listened, he implemented what people were asking for and got it done. So Roger is the chairman of the board. Honeywell is now officially Frank Sinatra.
Well, you know what? That's interesting because I came back from that Siemens meeting, the Siemens Talents meeting in Las Vegas, and they had the chairman of the board out there live and in person too, Marilyn Monroe. And these were familiar icons in our world. They had Marilyn out there in the reception area, and then they also had an incredible Frank Sinatra up on stage, and he sang the same close repertoire of what we had with New York, New York, Fly Me to the Moon. I can't even think of all of them, but they were great stuff. And this guy was, he's a taller version. He had a heck of a voice. He really had it down. It was a lot of fun. So that chairman of the board thing might have to be split.
Well, no. I think Siemens is more along the lines of who did Inagata Davida. You got that European. I'm not going to say ABBA because Josh Feldman would kill me, but you
Iron Butterfly. Holy moly! I haven't heard
Iron
that.
Butterfly. Yeah, they could be Iron Butterfly, man. They were awesome, man. Remember?
Well, you know Inagata Davida, how that came out? The guy was coming to practice, and the band had started. Two of the members were already in there, and their practice studio was a garage, and so they were outside listening to the two guys that were jamming. They thought, man, these guys sound good, and they misheard or misunderstood what they were saying. They were singing "In the Garden of Eden." Baby. But outside through the noise and whatever, they heard Inagata Davida. So they come in, they said, what a name, what a song. They said, what's not what we were singing? I said, well, it's what you're singing now.
Yeah, but I tell you what, like Siemens, man, very innovative like that, man. They stick to it. I mean, longest rock and roll song ever, Inagata Davida. And so I think Siemens is now officially Iron Butterfly. And we'll do the 70s next week, maybe. But all right. Cool. All right,
okay, we're digging that hole deeper and deeper.
We are.
We can only go up, but up. Okay.
We'll get our guest on before too long.
Well, EasyIO February newsletter. A lot of great announcements. EasyIO, you talk about just a movement. Talking the movement of the needle forward. They've got several great announcements. One that we can disclose, that's when Brian Klein is now the official trainer, North American trainer and support person, U.S. support engineer in North America. And also the new office and address change for the EasyIO Europe. They're moving into a bigger, more robust office in Gammet, Netherlands. And so congratulations to
Right,
Johan
dude.
Shakolrad and his team out there.
And we can't tell you this next
Guido.
move, but they hired a major industry player that we can't announce right now. But I tell you what, that is they're upgrading the roster, right? So that
Yeah, well, we'll certainly expect to see the needle move in the marketing department.
right.
And
So okay, so Easy IO, the Kinks.
the Kinks, okay. Mike Marston could do a job. You have to borrow one of your.
Actually, Mike could be more like Slade in the '70s, but we're talking '60s now. But I think the Kinks, right, for Easy IO.
You really got me.
Yeah.
That could be it. What I'll tell you what. All we got to do with Mike and the boys is go back to the Easy IO meeting in Manchester when we were up on stage and they were singing for real and Easy IO IO IO. The rules have changed, and
Yeah.
watch Eric Stromquist take the lead on stage. Sweet Home Alabama threw down the microphone. Don't need Neil Young around here anyhow.
Southern man don't need him around. John
Yeah.
Donahue. Yeah. All right. So,
So there you go.
all right, buddy. What do we have up next?
Well, the next is a transition post, and that's where we're going to go into our interviews. But it's just kind of the wrap-up post. We've got a lot of important marketing collateral that Optergy is making available. Steve Gozalimian and his team gave us several links that we're going to be posting on this week's Control Talk Now. But the first two that came up were the Tennessee application and then the paging. They've got another one where they're really into apps. In other words, we'll hear from our interview here shortly, but this thing here is all about, making things easier for utility billing. They've got this thing's tied into after hours override billing, dashboards, Fourier displays, weather data, and we'll just save it for the rest when we bring Steven on the interview.
Well, what do you say we bring him on right now?
Great
Got him
timing.
teed up. All
Great
right.
segue.
Kenny, how about introducing him?
Eric, I'm very excited to announce or introduce Steve Gozalimian, the president of Optergy. Steve, he's been with us several times on Control Talk Now, and he's helped move us forward into the leading technologies, innovations. Optergy is really introducing some cool things that play nice and really fit well into our race to that small space application. Welcome to the show, Steve.
Welcome, Stevie G. How's it going, buddy?
Couldn't be better. Thank you for having me. It's always good to talk to you guys. Looking forward to chatting.
Yeah, well, listen, first off, let's start with congratulations are in order. You guys did very well at the Control Trends Awards again this year. So congratulations on it. And thanks so much for your sponsorship again.
No, it's us that has to thank you. Thank you so much for having us and letting us be part of your family of friends and sponsors. It's been really good for us, and we're very grateful for the award and for the participation.
You know what? When you say that, it makes me think of one of my favorite songs, "New Kid in Town," because I think we need to give our audience, although you've been on the show several times before, Steve, I think we need to give our audience a little stable datum. So, you guys like the new kid in town, but you've been in the industry a while. But Optergy, "New Kid in Town" is kind of like the the theme song for you guys. And I think as we go along with the interview, we're going to find out that you guys are not only a new kid in town, you're a cool new kid. And you play well with others. So tell our listeners a little bit.
Cool new kid in North America.
Well, North America.
Yeah, it's been fun. Sometimes the fun of being a small company is that you can be very agile and do all the things that you wanted to do that maybe your former bosses said you couldn't. And I have that luxury with this business of being able to do all the dream things that we wanted to do and try to bring it to light. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun talking about some new concepts and new ways of looking at the old thing. I mean, as you said, kind of an old soul in controls, but in terms of the ideas that we have, they're really fresh and they're built by a young team that isn't sort of biased by the old way of doing things. So it's kind of like the old and the new that really are pumping out something really new.
Well, great, Steve. We've got some things teed up because I think we have some very important information to share about what Optergy is doing, and somehow we want to better explain the positioning of Optergy and how it's so well suited for so many applications right out of the box. In other words, it's not a software that requires a bunch of programming. It's not a bunch of you're not overwhelmed with the learning curve, and you're not hindered by the investments. You're ready to roll. So tell us about how the fresh start style of Optergy is
Yeah.
successful?
So one of the interesting things about our brand is that we're really brand agnostic as far as equipment and things go. So, and that has a lot of advantage because we've tied up with BACnet and Modbus. We can pretty much connect to every industry thing. Most of us from controls are come out of the HVAC world, but our world is sort of getting broader and broader now, taking in a bunch of different things and bringing in energy management and all kinds of other parts of the building. One of the things that we've done, and you'll see it in our collateral this year and on our website and in our messaging, is that we're going to be talking a lot more about applications, because we're really not just about the controls or the front end or the things that we typically think about when we think about building automation. Yeah, we can do all that. But what's really interesting about a building automation system is how you can tie it all together and make interesting outcomes out of a combination of events and buildings. So for example, if an air handler is consuming too much energy and you only find that out in the form of expenses or alarms at hard faults, you're really missing out on opportunities to save money along the way. So with contextual information, with information that is really built into applications, you really can drive a whole new level of performance out of even the smallest building. So that's a big part of our story. Optigy is software that can enhance an existing automation system. It can replace an automation system. It really can sit side by side and live nicely and complement, add functionality. You'll see on our website, we've added some new content about the applications. We've created a bunch of new application data sheets to explain more what it is we do. What does the software do? Because a lot of people don't get, they get a building automation system and it either has no manual or it has a hugely thick manual, neither of which are helpful. So we want to give you just the right amount of information, make it visual, make it contextual, and then you can run with it.
Very, very cool. And you guys, an example of an app might be something like an override system or something like that, right? Or tenant billing type thing. I mean,
Sure.
you're kind of like the App Store, right?
Yeah, it's a bit like that. So think about your phone, right? Your phone by itself, we all carry smartphones now pretty much. And that smartphone, you don't really think about whether it's a 32-bit microprocessor or whether it has, a certain level of, technical spec. You care that you can Snapchat and Facebook and do your email and get alarms when you wake up in the morning. You care about all those apps that sort of help you, that make it useful. So it's the same way in a building automation system. It's not the fact that you have a building automation system and you have reached all this equipment. What matters is what you can do with that information, and having it easy to use without requiring a highly trained, certified person that you had to send away for training for a week and spend thousands of dollars. No, it just should be easy to use, easy enough to use that anybody can use it. And that's sort of our philosophy.
Well, diving deeper into one of the particular applications was the tenancy application. I mean, this was pretty special. I'm reading right off the data sheet, and we have this posted on Control Trends this week. It was one of our posts, but the tenancy features allow the system automatically generate content for tenants that include the utility billing, after-hour override and billing, dashboards, foyer displays, and weather data integration. So I mean, this is really kind of like new. I don't know if anybody offers this right out of the box.
Yeah, look, it's so this is part of our reach in the building. So when you go back to controls, it really went back to HVAC controls. It was temperature controls. It was the thermostat guys that started controls. So if you go in the Wayback Machine, it was really HVAC that really got controls rolling. Well, we know that a building has more than HVAC, right? It's got people, and people have to be managed. Costs have to be managed. There's a whole bunch of other things that need management. So when we say a BMS system, I mean, come on, we're not really being honest with ourselves. We're doing temperature control or HVAC control, maybe a little lighting control years ago. We weren't doing building management. We weren't connecting to ERP systems and doing other things, right? So Optigy recognized this, and because a lot of our providers, our service providers, well, you want to give them more scope in a world that's changing. You know, as technology changes in HVAC, the scope for the contractor is going to change. And if they don't have as many systems to bid on because they're now VRV technology or some other technology, well, suddenly their scope's going to go way down. And then in service, if you really want to drive service business, you got to have things to offer your customer more than fix it when it's broke or service contracts. So we want to pile lots of applications for the contractors to go add value, add scope to their work, give them an opportunity to sell more into the customer, add more value to the customer by giving them things that solve their problems. So to that end, we came up with this tenancy feature set, and we delineated it as a separate feature set because it was something that had to be explained. And if you just pile all the features into one chunk of software, it becomes a bit like a Swiss Army knife. It's hard to figure out what the primary purpose of this thing is. So that's why if you go to our website, optigy.com, you'll see there's a new section called applications, and we're going to build that up. We started with building management, scheduled trends, alarms, graphics, what we're used to doing. We added energy management, which we talked on previous shows. So it'll be about reporting and visualization and dashboards. And now we're adding tenancy to it. And in the tenancy application, we're really talking about things that are not really typical controls, after hours override, for example, or utility metering and billing. So yeah, look, there's a ton of stuff in there.
Well, it's really cool. But one of the other things that got me, again, to Eric's point, Optigy won the Innovation Award, the Control Trends Innovation Award, which was already pretty impressive. And I know that you're migrating, your markets are already real strong in Australia. I think one of your contractors from Hawaii was one of the Systems Integrators of the Year awards. Yeah. So what I think too is that what I get really, is your tenancy application. Does it also have that incredible supply of languages where you can convert? I think about Optigy and Proton was it was available in what 60 languages or something. I mean, something phenomenal.
Yeah, look, I think it's somewhere closer to 20, but yeah, it's there's a bunch. So there's a bunch of things we've done. So a couple of things since we last spoke, we brought on a bunch of new partners. So we're now in about a dozen different countries in the world. We're over 50 partners and growing every day. We're into Indonesia, Malaysia, the Philippines, Australia, all over the UK, Canada, US, Mexico, South America now, Caribbean. So we're growing sort of geographically, and to be geographical, there's a couple of distinct needs. One is you need to serve the language needs in countries that aren't, good with English. Two, you've got to be priced very aggressively because a lot of those countries don't have the same kind of economical sort of advantage and ability to pay for controls in the traditional sort of price modeling. And then three, you got to have the right feature set for them, because in parts of the world they don't use the commercial HVAC technology we use. They use fan coils, or they use VRV systems, splits all over. So you have to adapt to those different markets. The tenancy thing is one that is pretty universal. So in all buildings, you have usually tenants, especially commercial office buildings, and a lot of times those tenants have they have to a lease, and that lease requires them or provides them with services between their prescribed hours. But in the case where they don't, and suddenly the customer decides they're going to change the way they operate, maybe add on another shift, they start consuming a lot more resources. And in some places, the costs are very high for energy use. Hawaii is a good case in point. And you'll see some case studies from us on that coming soon. We've got a couple that are in the works about to be posted. So I'll let you know when those get posted. But
Awesome.
what you find is in places where there's high energy costs, even in your backyard, there's places where people just want to charge back the usage to the tenants, and there's
Absolutely.
no easy way to do that. It usually involves a lot of human intervention. It requires logging times and going through reports and having essentially somebody have a full-time job just managing all that. In our system, what we can do is either through the mobile app, we can empower the user to do the actual after hours activation, and just from the mobile app, giving them authority, and they can then trigger their after hours override on the fly, or they can schedule it in advance. So we lighten the load of the facility manager. They don't have to take 20, 30 calls on doing after hours. And then at the same time, we empower the user. But more importantly for the owner, we recover the costs, and that's the key part. So they get, it's sort of win-wins. It's good for the owner, it's good for the FM, and it's good for the end user. Everybody gets a better system, and it's just one little feature in our system that we've packaged. All you have to do is configure it. You don't have to program it. No special training. You watch a 5-10 minute video, and you know how to do it. It's as simple as that.
Very cool. Well, rumor on the street is you got a new controller out, the 864. Tell us a little bit about that.
Oh my God, I'm so excited about that. I'm about to bust. So
not on camera, please.
Yeah, no. Look, that is the single most exciting thing that we're working on. We announced it at the HR Expo. We had everybody come by our booth. Everybody wants to know what this thing's about, and it's going to drop real soon. We're in the final stretch of tying all the loose ends, getting a product done, agency approvals, all that kind of stuff. We are super excited to announce here on the podcast that we're going to be releasing a controller that's aptly called the P864. So that's a programmable 8 universal input, 6 binary output, 4 analog output controller. And this controller will communicate over BACnet IP, BACnet MSTP, be a router between them, as well as doing power over Ethernet to power the whole thing. So it's a super flexible controller. It'll be truly the first real open controller. I know open's a widely overused word, but ours is programmed with a web browser and nothing else. So all you need is a browser to do the programming. It's got security built in for our contractor partners so that they can lock down their intellectual property. So if they put some cool fault detection in there and they don't want people coming in poaching their service, we've put encryption and password protection so nobody gets that unless they work for the NSA, I'm guessing. We actually have 3 controller variants, so we're going to change the way contractors can stock parts. Only 3 parts to stock. So there'll be a programmable controller, there'll be an expansion I/O module, and then you can expand that up to as many as 8 modules in total. So that's 144 points, all into one little controller footprint that can be DIN rail mounted, power over Ethernet, 24 volts AC or DC, and you can just run with it.
And that plays real nice with your existing Proton Optergy.
Absolutely, it plays nice with any BACnet system. But if you want to get the best of it, you can match it up to our Proton and use all those cool apps that we have built in and extend on your controller. And because it's IP based, you really don't have to be at the site to do the programming. So from a logistics standpoint, everywhere I travel now, the traffic's getting worse and worse. Like I was in London and in Manila and places where traffic is unbelievable. Do you really want your programmers commuting in traffic when they could be sitting at their desk with an IP connection to the controller? So
I think that's going to be a fundamental default to the future, because you're right. They just can't afford to put people in vehicles and have them driving, wasting 4 hours going to and from. Those days are over. Secure
remote connectivity is where it's at for sure. Productivity goes way up. We're also going to come out with a VAV controller, because obviously that's part of our game too. And all of these 3 parts, they're basically going to be three parts for the contractor to stock. So instead of having a wide range of parts that people want to have, these can be mix and match. So you can take a P864, and if suddenly you wanted airflow sensing on it, you can chip a little knockout off of it and drop an airflow sensor on there, and you'll have highly accurate airflow sensing for the purpose of doing VAV. So if you wanted an IP, PoE, VAV controller, you could have that too. So yeah, this one controller is going to really change things for us. It's going to allow us to connect even further into the building and do interesting things.
Speaking to the PoE, so are you going to try to do what the CCTVs do? So you'd have, I mean, explain that architecture.
Yeah, so Power over Ethernet is a concept that's been used a lot in the security side, where you just simply take your communication cable, that's your IP connectivity, but there's a couple of wires on there for power as well, and so there's a few different standards. There's already some products out there that do use PoE in the HVAC world, but it's not as common for HVAC. It's a nice, particularly nice in the small building scenario as well, because you can drop a PoE switch and then just connect into the controller, and then you can basically have that connectivity. So in a small building, easy powering, easy all your comms in one cable, and you can sort of have your reach across the building.
We've already seen it. Eric and I were fortunate to see kind of a private viewing of an entirely controlled PoE building, and everything was controlled by PoE, and it was remarkable. I mean, if that takes all, this was in California, just one of those Title 24 driven projects, and it was unbelievable that they could control every aspect of it with the PoE.
I think flexibility and having the apps is still more important than the connections, but it is important to have flexible connections now. We can't just do things in one architecture. That the old architecture of the unitary controller, the supervisor controller, and the supervisor really doesn't make sense in the flat peer-to-peer world that we live in. You know, my phone can talk to your phone. It doesn't have to go through a supervisor controller and then to another supervisor to share information with you. So why do our buildings work that way? And with the increase in bandwidth, we can do more interesting things too, like pass video content and do other kinds of more interesting applications. So that's going to be a hugely important add to our contractors. We have a lot of small contractors too that don't have access to a product line. So they, you know, the big brands, you know, the big three, and they tend to line up with their distribution and then don't really want to share nicely necessarily to other contractors. So we're going to be that easy to get to product. But it won't be just the hardware. Remember, what matters is the application, right? So there's a lot of companies that sell bits and pieces, but if you don't have the whole system, or if you don't have software to complement those products, then how are you going to do the tenant billing, or how are you going to do energy management, or how are you going to do bigger scale, or anything that goes across networks and things? So those companies that sell bits and pieces, it's going to be really hard for them to come up with full solutions for their customer. Whereas, you know, we already have the software with all the apps for those three topics, and we add the controls to it. It'll just sort of fill that in nicely.
Yeah, I know we have a lot of distribution, you know, people that listen, as well as consulting engineers, as well as building owners. And, you know, when you're talking about going direct to the contractor, that's a very viable model. I would invite you to also consider going through distribution. Like you said, has worked for the big three. And what Ken and I have sort of discovered, Steve, is at the end of the day, you can have the greatest mousetrap in the world, but if you don't have local presence that's out selling it, and that's really what distributors are doing now. I mean, just stocking inventory is one part of it, you know, doing the tech support's another, but the big thing distributors are doing now to be successful, Steve, is they're going out and they're selling it. They're getting the message out there. And I think you got a great concept there. I really do. I'm loving the products. I sort of want to summarize for our Control Trends community a little bit, because it seems like you could fit in a lot of different slots here. So if you've got somebody, for example, if you're an EasyIO contractor or a KMC contractor, a Honeywell, or even Johnson contractor or Distech, it seems like what you offer is the ability to use those controllers with sort of your interface and apps to do stuff that you might not be able to do with the interface that comes with the existing system. So that's one area you guys play in, right? Sort of as
no, you're exactly right.
Okay, cool. And it seems like what you guys are starting to do different now is now you're saying, okay, now we're going to add the hardware as well. So if you want to buy the entire solution from us, you can buy the entire solution from us as well. So you can either buy the apps the overlay, the interface, which you guys have, great track records with, or you can buy that and the control system as well. Is that accurate?
No, you're exactly right. And as we expand geographically, we have places that need access to control. So we're going to bring that access to them. So yeah, that's exactly right. And on distribution, I totally agree. Look, all business is local, as the saying goes, and you've got to have boots on the ground in wherever you want to do business. So
I guess sort of embedded in that is for our distribution partners out there that listen. I mean, is there an ability for them to play? Because it sounds like sort of the way it was framed up, is a distributor you sort of hear, okay, well, I just need to shut that out. I need to compete against that because there's not a place for me to play there. But am I hearing you say that there is a place where distribution and contractors can play together?
Yeah, absolutely. So the key thing, I think what I've learned over the years with sort of those distribution businesses is that as long as they can provide the parts and the smarts, not just selling parts and sort of dispositioning them like water valves or thermostats, as long as they can do sort of a little bit of the engineering support, a little, some of that hand holding, then I think that's a successful avenue.
Well, I think to your points, both of your points, which are valid, is that we're seeing the evolution of several industries at once. You're mentioning, Steve, that creating an ecosystem style with apps driving, pulling the business through because they want that application, and they want it at the least, they don't want to go over all these barriers of entry anymore. They want to get to the solution, and you published recently some information about how we still are almost retardedly slow in dealing with the energy crisis that we have. We have all these buildings drawing all the energy, and we can't produce any more energy, so we have to be more conservative of what we have. So we have a market out there where 80% of these buildings are underserved. So I think all the avenues being taken here will get things done. And I think that we all see now that if you're a distributor, you got to scramble a little bit, move to your right or left, and think about how you got to create a new, like you said.
We have to create value.
It was a managed service thing I was trying to get to, is that you said you wanted to give those contractors more scope in the building, which is absolutely brilliant, because that's what distributors are trying to do too. We're trying to get into, more relevant, value-added relevancy, but it's done through not controllers anymore, not the architectural hierarchy where you had this controller, this controller, this controller. Those are all being wiped away. And so now we have to evolve and come into another, add the value that Eric just mentioned there, but it's going to be through a managed service. So by mastering certain managed service providers, like your controllers here and your Optergy, having that ability to go into a solution where somebody needs a solution, and you got good, better, best, you've got budget issues, you got everything. I think what you're doing is you're putting another serious quiver or arrow in the quiver that everybody in the business has an opportunity now to sell something relevant, affordable, and basically you've taken a lot of the difficulties and hardships out of taking the software out of it. You've taken, some of the licensing out of it. You've taken, the learning curve has been lowered, flattened. So this sounds like you guys are going to have a very, very bright future, and we can participate in it.
Yeah, no, right on. Look, that's exactly, there's the secret sauce right there. It's in the end, it's giving people what they want, not giving them what you have, and that I think is going to be our big push is going to be looking not just to solve problems, but to give people tools so that they can solve problems for their customers. And that's really where our interest lies, and it's going to be broader than typically what we see. Like we came out with things that you just don't see in building automation systems, an audio paging system, all these different things. We're going to reach into different areas of the building, and it's all going to be to provide solutions that customers are asking for, but just don't normally get.
Well, that's a good segue into your audio paging system, because that just was released too with another amplifying of features. So you've got the facility managers, the tenants, but then I saw we had another crisis in America at Central Michigan University where a student, lost his mind essentially, and so how do you tell that kind of a distributed environment take cover, whatever. So I'm seeing.
Well, those kinds of systems are life safety systems, not quite what we have, but it's, look, there's a place for it in the building automation space.
Sure,
Whether
great
we
notification.
participate there or not, there's a whole bunch of other reaches too that we can do into the building for information, for notifications, for alerts, for different reasons. It could just be as simple as, hey, it's hot outside, and the kids out there in the elementary school, you need to drink water. I mean, it might just be simple little things that we don't normally think about, but we can do with some of these connected solutions. IP connectivity is going to dramatically change that, because when we're dealing with traditional controls, we're always constrained by bandwidth. So there's only so much you can do over 76K on an MSTP bus. Whereas when you open it up to high speed, you could do things that you wouldn't otherwise think you could do. Video, for example.
Well, I think it's like, because you said about the phone, but this application, I mean, this sounds to me like you're only limited by your own device, because it says urgent notifications, weather alerts, campus-wide alerts, employee-based time, quitting time announcements, custom messaging, and so to me, that it just has incredible potential. I mean, you might not want to call it life safety because of the liabilities and whatever, but you certainly could use it as a secondary notification source.
Very timely. Very timely.
Well, look, and the other thing is that you can connect these things together, so they don't operate in a vacuum. So the thing that we're trying to bridge here is there are siloed systems in buildings. There's systems that get installed and they operate kind of standalone. And in some ways, this IoT discussion right now is not actually advancing that cause of integration. It's actually setting us back a little bit in some ways, because we end up with yet another silo into yet another solution. So even if you have a cool connected thing, but it can't communicate back to the facility manager to their building automation system and integrate. For example, if you have a great leak detection system and it operates standalone on its own, well, why not tell the building automation system, which is the primary interface to the building, and connect that in, right? So that's I think going to be the challenge for IoT, is to make sure that they synthesize into the building in the ways that we're used to doing.
Right. Well, I tell you what, Stevie, as we wrap it up, and we're talking to Steve Galizium from Optergy, and Steve, when I'm listening to you talk, it's kind of like if you took the best controls guys on the planet and put them in a room and said, all right, we're going to start from scratch and build a system. I mean, that seems like where you guys are sort of fitting, because if you got legacy stuff, I mean, you got to support it. And it's like you're almost a victim to your own success. I think that's just a sign of the times that wherever we're at, if we've been successful with technology changing so rapidly, you've got to get rid of that and go to the next thing. And so it seems like you guys are hopping in at the right point. Our competitors are probably all going, your competitors are probably all going, you got to be aware of guys named Steve that get in the technology business, right? There was Steve Jobs, now there's Stevie G. So, so dude, how do people get hold of you other than going through your local distributor, but optergy.com?
Optergy.com. You can check out, if you check out the applications, you'll see those new documents. You can pull them down right off the website. Those are multi-page graphical, nice, easy to view, see what our system's really about. You can also find case studies there, and you can contact us and find me there. You can also find me on LinkedIn, though my name's hard to spell. Optergy is not OPTERGY.
It's not hard to spell. Who said that?
It's hard to say.
Yeah, hard to say, no. But if you look for me on LinkedIn, you'll find me there. We post all kinds of stuff there, and we've got our blog on the website. So check out what's
and you can also sort of get a linear progression of Optergy and Stevie's success, because I think you were one of the first calls when you started deploying in the U.S. You got hold of us, so we've sort of had the pleasure of sort of tracking you as you've gone along. So we've got you just type his name in on Control Trends as well, and you can see the previous interviews. So Steve, man, thanks so much, man. Keep on keeping on.
Yeah, right on. Thanks for having me.
All right, buddy. All right, Kenny Smyers, tell us about our next guest.
I'm very excited to do that, Eric. We have two important people here, and this is going to be a great interview series. But the first person we're going to bring on is Ron Zimmer, President and CEO of Kaaba. Ron is one of the most recognized and important stewards in our industry. He is a recent recipient of the Control Trends Hall of Fame. Welcome to the show, Ron.
Welcome, Ron.
I'm so glad to be here and to join two icons in our industry. So great to be here.
Well, thanks, Ron, buddy. I tell you what, we see you at all the meetings, and we love what you do, because one of my teachers once said, "In God we trust, and all else get data." So, but for our listeners who might not know what Kaaba does, how about telling them what you guys are up to?
Sure. Very quickly, Kaaba is an international trade association working strictly with the world of intelligent buildings, IoT in buildings, and connected homes. In fact, integrated systems in all buildings anywhere in the world. And what we've seen over the last 30 years as an industry association is as a massive growth in the industry. When you think back 30 years ago, of course, there was certainly some technology that was coming together, but today it's phenomenal, to the point that no one person, no one company can follow all of that. So Kaaba continues to follow that and doing good research, collecting research, and then disseminating that research and information to now we have over 370 member organizations. We're governed by a board of directors of 24 great companies and organizations. We are reaching, and people, somewhere in a number over 25,000 industry professionals are working with Kaaba, using our research, using our information, and of course that bodes well for our industry and the fact that more people are understanding it.
Well, they really are, and you do everything from smart homes to smart buildings, intelligent buildings, and so again, the research is absolutely invaluable. How do people get involved with your organization?
Very simply, we try to, and that's why we attend. Last year, we attended like 35 events around the world. I'm soon off to Light and Building at Frankfurt, but we produced some really good research. This one is most recently completed, called Intelligent Buildings Design and Implementation. That research is available to a lot of people in the industry. We do white papers. We were delighted that at the last event we at AHR Expo, we actually unveiled creating a new deal for buildings, which is an amazing white paper with involvement of so many great companies and people in our industry. So that research is available. A lot of it's free in our public library, going to kaaba.org. And our white papers are absolutely free. There's a lot of great information. People don't actually have to join Kaaba to access this research. And that's our mandate as a nonprofit organization.
Well, I think where we're going to go with this interview, because we got another guest that's coming on in a minute, is, we're talking about intelligent buildings. And, Kenny Smyers and I have been talking for quite some time. It's changing so rapidly. And, the old ways are probably not just serving us the way they need to. And I think one of the biggest challenges that we're seeing is the owners and even the integrators or even the consulting engineers, I think to a certain degree, are inundated with so much information. Mm-hmm. It's almost like paralysis by analysis. But so I think where you guys come in and where our next guests come in is really try to remove that cloud and make it easy to understand. But like this recent one that you just came out with in February about the intelligent buildings, what are some takeaways that you gleaned from that sort of surprised you?
Well, some because I've been involved in industry, and you would know this, and others in our industry. We need to go to more open standards. We need to get away from this proprietary standards, and even the so-called open standard groups are not as open as we would like them to be. So that gets rid of this complexity of can I buy that piece of equipment, that chiller, will that work with that building automation system? We are encouraging, and now with cloud technology, we're encouraging what's called a digital twin. And so the digital twin is really having basically a model-based analytics to really have that secondary way that you can analyze your systems and then make the appropriate changes to that. That's example, diagnostics of equipment is a great example. So for determining when equipment is failing before it actually fails. And then service transparency. We think of Uber and what that's done to the transportation industry, where the customer really understands what's happening. It's very clear, it's very transparent, and that is because of open standards. That's because of the fact that we've got now model-based analytics that'll make it so much easier for the user to not be confused and then to make the right decision. And again, if we could move this way, and we are, IoT, cloud technology, blade technology, the whole IoT is really helping that movement, but we're just touching the tip of the iceberg. And I know we're going to talk about that, but our goal is really trying to educate all of the segments of that ecosystem, right from the end user, the facility manager, the developers, the construction companies, the owners, right through the integrators, the architects, engineers, and right through the OEMs and service providers and telcos, etc.
Go ahead, Kenny.
Well, I just wanted to reiterate and echo some of the things that I did have a chance to read, the Creating a New Deal for Buildings, the white paper to facilitate the adoption of information technologies that enable a more productive indoor environment. And it was a very impressive document, and it was also authored by some very, very high-ranking industry leaders.
Yep.
So an incredible group of authors, an incredible working group, and an incredible subcommittee. So well done. Congratulations to Kaaba. And again, I'd echo, it's very easy to sign up and access this information. I mean, literally, you just give your, the vital information, your email address, your position, whatever, and you have access to.
It's free.
Updated, critical information that can really lead to, successes in the solution markets that we're in.
Yeah, well, Ron, there's a reason that you were inducted into the Control Trends Hall of Fame. So it's not lost on Kenny and myself, and I think the rest of our industry, what you do and the value you do. So thank you for your many years of service and hard work.
Only been 20 years, but it's gone so fast.
Yeah, it's gone fast. But listen, at the end of the day, I think one of the themes that we're talking about is really sort of knocking the silos down, opening the doors, and getting everything. I think that's where the future of intelligent buildings is really going to happen. And our next guest is another key piece. I think he sees this. He's taken a different route to try to help to knock those silos down and bring us all together. So Kenny, how about introducing our next guest? And Ron, can you stay on and talk with us for a while?
Sure.
Well, Eric, I'd love to again. This is a thrill because I think we're going to hear from an emerging voice in our industry. And again, the infusion of enthusiastic, youthful, intelligent, and innovative thought is what we need at this time in our industry. So we're going to introduce Brad Kalt, PECTS, Director of Technology Services with HGA Architects and Engineers. Welcome, Brad.
Welcome, Brad.
Hey, thank you guys. And I want to thank you. You guys have been a wonderful resource for me as I've been learning more about the controls industry. So I come to this from the technology side of things. So I've been specifying Division 27, 28 for my whole career. And as more and more of the building automation is turning into network technology and bits and bytes, our mechanical engineers have been saying, we could really use some of the technology expertise applied to this, some of the IT best practices. So I've been getting up to speed working with them, learning a little bit more about what the HVAC industry and controls industry is, and they've been learning from me and our group about what the technology side of it is. And again, thank you guys, because you've been a very instrumental source in being able to help stitch our groups together.
Well, you're very, very, very welcome. Well, thank you. And listen, we're so glad to have you here today. For our listeners who might not know, tell them about what your organization does. I mean, I know you got another organization, but your company, HCO.
Yeah, so HGA is a integrated architectural and engineering firm. Have been since the very beginning. Our founders thought it was very important for the engineers to be working with the architects and forming these complete solutions. And so for me, as somebody who looks at the Internet of Things and wanting to tear down these silos, I say this is a wonderful opportunity for me to be able to work with our group who does these designs every day to try and elevate our practice and to try and be able to disrupt a little bit of the way we're delivering these projects, the way we're communicating to end users, and the way that we're all working together to be able to make the future happen.
Well, Brad, it's good stuff, but you have a particular initiative that you launched recently in February last month that was very exciting, and we were fortunate to get the PowerPoint presentation there that captured the premier thoughts. So tell us about that, the initiative of the Intelligent Buildings Working Group.
Sure. So we started up a working group to bring together the disparate factions of people who are all working in the building. So the people who call themselves integrators, whether they're from the controls side or whether they're going to be the people that I'm used to working with, the security integrators, audio video integrators, these people who are pulling the Division 27 cabling and that backbone, which is so critical for being able to bring all these services together. And what we started with a conversation I had with somebody from a technology integrator, who was Jeff Malika from Parsons Technologies here in the Twin Cities, who just asked the question, is there an organization like ASHRAE, like Bixby, that supports local groups who can get together and share their information, share their knowledge on how to create these smart buildings? And did a little bit of research and came to the conclusion there really isn't a group out there, not at the local level, that does this. There's some great groups like Kaaba at the national level, but we decided, this is something that has some value. We've got a lot of talent here in the Twin Cities, and I've learned a lot from a lot of the people who have become a part of our group, which is really just getting started here. So yeah, we saw an opportunity, and our approach was, let's just start it and we'll see where it goes.
I think it's awesome. I think I think it's a great idea, and I'm going to do everything I can to support it, because this is the communication we need to really bring that transparency that Ron Zimmer had mentioned earlier, that we've got to improve the processes and the methodologies by which we deliver, comfort inside the buildings, all buildings of every size and shape. And the only way we can do that is to tear down the walls and start the communication process on a lateral scale instead of a vertical.
Mm-hmm.
So well done. I hope you succeed in every possible way.
So Brad, am I to understand that you've got one in the Twin Cities right now, and you're looking to go national and probably global with it?
Well, we just wanted to start something to support our local market.
Yeah.
And what we've been trying to do is connect with other folks to find out, are there other groups like this around the country?
Yeah.
And is there a national organization that would like to be able to help us to organize, to connect with each other, to share resources, to build some of that education? I see Ron raising his hand over there. So talking with Kaaba, when I read the New Deal white paper, I said, oh my gosh, these guys are thinking like we are. This is an organization I'm glad to have learned about through that white paper and through my visit to AHR this year. And I've been talking with Donnie Walker as well, which is a relationship that's started to form through the Control Trends Awards. I was honored to be nominated as a Progressive Consultant of the Year, and ended up reaching out to Donnie and to Richard Reed and congratulated them for their wins. And I kind of shared with them, this is what we're thinking about starting here. Do you guys have any insight? Because I know that they're well known and well respected in the industry. And Donnie had said, I've wanted to start something like that myself. And he's also been reaching out to the Realcomm, IBComm folks that I know you guys know,
right,
and looking at other opportunities there. And as this is just a burgeoning conversation, we're still just getting started. I look for maybe some opportunities to work with them, work with Ron's group, and to also get connected with any other consultants around the country and other integrators groups who are starting and doing the same sort of thing, because I don't imagine we're the only people who are having these conversations. And hopefully by being able to get out here and get a little bit of this exposure, we're able to connect and make some of these relationships happen.
Well, is there like, if somebody is interested in getting involved or starting a group, what's the best way to contact you?
My most public profile is probably on LinkedIn.
Well, yeah.
LinkedIn.
Okay, cool.
I can share my email address if you want to put that in the show notes. And go ahead and reach out to me. We've been starting a lot of conversations. I've been very excited about the enthusiasm. That's something that at every level, anybody who's interested in this is very passionate. So we have that shared passion in common.
Well, I think we do. And I think, Kenny coined a phrase, and I think we're just in a new reality. And Ron, you've been around the wars a lot like we have. And, Brad, you look like you're kind of younger. You probably should be a young gun too. So we'll have to do that. So I mean that very complimentary way, because, man, getting old is not for sissies. So, but, it's like when Kenny and I and Ron, I think, came along, I mean, it was just dog eat dog sort of thing. And your sort of weapon of choice was your knowledge, right? What you knew and other people didn't know. That's how you differentiated yourself. Well, the internet changed all that. And you still got people that are trying to play that way. It just doesn't work. So in this world that we live in now, vis-a-vis everything, but in intelligent buildings specifically, I mean, you have to rethink that. I mean, I think you have to share your information because everybody can get it anyway. So you have to be a resource. And then the other thing is, you can't be all things to all people because it's changing so quickly. And so one of these Kenny and I are saying, a term he adopted is one called co-competition, where today you might be competing, tomorrow you might be working together. And I'm just curious, are you guys seeing that in your realms?
Well, that's very fundamental to this group we're putting together. We recognize that in most cases it's not going to be one company that's going to deliver this solution, and so we are really bringing together competitors and recognizing that there's a large opportunity here, and that we would like to work together to try and grow this industry, make sure that we're connecting with end users. I think that's going to be a big part of what we're trying to do, is be able to provide some good communication and education to them on here's what you should be aspiring to, and this is what your occupants can expect when they walk into your building, and be able to show them what the next level looks like so that they know how to get there and what they should be striving for. And so for us, that means tearing down the silos and bringing together people who would be competing, and we'll work together to grow that pie and then compete over bigger slices of the pie.
Very well said.
Yeah, if I could just add that, and Brad's absolutely right on, and you are as well, that in the older days, of course, you did try to control the marketplace with your proprietary products and standards and technologies, and that's changed dramatically. And you're absolutely right to have now companies working together because the pie is getting bigger. The technology is becoming more integrated. So where you might have been very specialized in lighting, and you might have been very specialized in HVAC or security, life safety, or digital signage, communications, that's now all coming together. And even the very large companies are having challenges to be able to say we can cover all of it. So they have to, you're seeing this very strategic partnerships in a way that is quite amazing. And a good example would be Amazon. So Amazon, just as a quick example, what Alexa, and they're not the only one. Google's got products in the this is the connected home space, or Apple with Siri, Samsung's coming out with products, so there's a lot of great technology that's really going to show a new way of connecting. Voice recognition is going to be that new interface that's going to make it even easier. And this will be one of the first technologies that's going to move from the connected home space to the commercial space, because we're going to come from our homes and be able to change the temperature, change the lights, turn the lights off, check out who's at the front door by voice. And we're going to come to our offices and say, what? This old technology, we can't even control our temperature, let alone talk to the thermostat. So this is something where the world is changing very dramatically. And how do companies and people all at all levels stay in touch? And so the group, but what Brad is doing in the Twin Cities is very impressive. I only recently became aware of it, and so Brad and I have had a discussion. And I actually think there is a role for Kaaba. And to this point, we have not engaged at the really local level. We have certainly integrators, architectural firms, engineering firms that are members of Kaaba. They're using our services. That's more individually. But I actually believe, and I'm going to certainly be taking back to our Intelligent Building Council and our board of directors this opportunity to help groups like Brad to see how we can assist and not only in the Twin Cities area, but this could happen in virtually every major city or geography. So I think there's an opportunity here, Brad, and you may have started something, and I'm not aware, quite frankly, of another group like yours in the world. So I compliment you.
Yeah, I'm not either. And I compliment you too, Brad. And I tell you what, I'm so glad we're recording this, because I have a feeling, Brad, that, like 50 years from now, when this organization you've created is larger than all these other organizations, they'll go back to the videotapes and they go, yeah, it was Ron Zimmer and Brad and Ken Smyers. It all happened on a weekend.
On a Saturday morning.
On a Saturday morning. And that's where it all began. So, Brad, I applaud your vision as well. I think you're really onto something here.
Well, thank you guys. And yeah, I would say our group would really welcome having somebody like Kaaba help to connect us, because what it really came down to is each of us within our own silos are talking about intelligent building, where you've got ASHRAE, you've got the BICSI groups on the security side, as is, and other groups on the audio video side. We've got a VIXA, but they're all talking within their siloed channels still. And that was where we found this lacking, is that we need to bring everybody together to really talk about how to do this. And for us, it was important to invite general contractors who weren't going to be a part of any of those individual trade groups, because they're going to be the ones who are going to have to understand how they're scoping their contracts and making sure that we're able to account for not only who's going to be responsible, and now as we're moving things into Division 25, how are we going to shift around who's overseeing who, but also looking for opportunities to be able to find cost savings through consolidation of these services. What makes the most sense? And then there's a low voltage person, the Division 27 becomes very important as well. And I've been advocating for a while that Division 27 should be a tier 1 sub. They need a seat at the table if they're putting in the cabling, because of not only the importance of what that backbone means for all of these IP intelligent systems that are riding on the network, but the sequence, just getting down to the practicality of how that cable is getting installed. If you've got 5 different people who are pulling cable into the building, what are the odds that somebody's going to end up pulling cable in over someone else, burning the jackets off of it, doing some damage, and just making this a little bit more unreliable holistic system?
Plus the new threats that are now evident, like the cybersecurity. If you've got to have somebody managing the best interest, the master systems integrator, whomever, or an engineer that's enlightened, says we got to really truly address all aspects and reduce all the duplicities, get economies of scales everywhere. But most importantly is to integrate the most important efforts, and that is cybersecurity. But you mentioned something that I think that we've seen, the big buzz, of course, is disruption, but collaboration. We've seen the greatest gains in our industry have occurred in lightning speed times, where it took 10 years to get to here, but all of a sudden the last 2 years, because of collaboration, because of things like Ken Sinclair with his collaboratorium at the AHR show, and because of Donnie Walker and his group, and your group and Ron's group. Ron always shared information. We're seeing the dissemination of information occur so quickly that it's making such an impact, not 2 years from now, but immediately. And we had a previous guest who's talking about technology, and the reality is that everybody's breaking the rules. The internet probably was the first major upset to the whole thing. And then we had, the opportunities to get access to things, like Eric said, we couldn't get before. It was like, you had to pay to play. And so now that these barriers are being reduced or whatever, we're seeing the ability to get information, correct, vital information to somebody that needs it somewhere in the channel, that used to find out after the job was over. Oh crap, why didn't you guys tell me this? Those days are over. We got to get smart, and of course the all important value, add value to it. And a happy owner is a successful owner, is a repeat customer. So
well, yeah. What are you guys seeing the biggest headwinds to that you guys are running into? I mean, obviously, it seems like one mindset that I'll throw right out to start the conversation is, I think, building owners inherently, like the rest of us, are focused on cost, price, right? Get the system in as inexpensively as possible. And they're not necessarily thinking about the life cycle or maintaining, the cost to maintain the building. That's one that I'm seeing. Are you guys seeing that? And what other ones are you seeing, headwinds that keep the collaboration from happening?
Well, I really like what Brad was saying. In fact, in this study, we on intelligent buildings design implementation, clearly one of the things that still is as Brad indicated, that we're not seeing that sharing and true discussion between all the key groups. So an owner might have he's building a new building or retrofitting, and may have a vision of having this intelligent building. And by the time it gets down to the completion, and all the different groups, that lack of communication, and sometimes disincentives that actually pull the technology, the great technology of intelligent building technologies, out of the system, because it's a CapEx cost, and they're not concerned about the operational costs that are going to happen down the road for the next 20, 30, 40 years. So that information's got to go to the C-suite. It's got to go to the CFO and to the C-suite ultimately, so they truly understand the value. And just on that point, I will say that one of the things that we're now focused on, we've been so focused on the operational costs. So yes, we can really reduce energy costs, and a lot of people in the industry, even end users, are starting to get it. We have Jones Lang LaSalle, CBRE, and many other builders, developers, facility managers as part of Kaaba, and they're starting to get it, and that's filtering through. The understanding of data analytics, cloud technology, I think the value proposition that brings, data is the new gold. It's the new gold rush. So people are starting to understand that. Google understood this a long time ago, and that's why they're so far ahead of everybody. But the third pillar is the people, the employees. We somehow have, the owners have not really focused on the fact that is the most important asset.
That's their client, right?
That's the major asset. So the employee, the customer, whoever's in that building, whether it's a shopping mall, it's a commercial building full of architects or engineers or accountants like PricewaterhouseCoopers, or lawyers. You may have heard this rule of 330, 300. And basically the big costs, the three being the energy costs on average, depending what state, city you are. And so if you can reduce that by 33%, that's huge. A million square feet, you've knocked $1 off, and so basically it's now $2 squared. That's amazing, and people are starting to understand that as energy costs rise. The overall space costs, 30, could be 40 somewhere else, but that's big. But the 300 being the fact that that's the average employee cost per square foot. And in Silicon Valley, it's actually the estimator on 800.
Yeah.
So if you could actually improve productivity, we know that. We absolutely know that if we can get the air quality just right, we can get the temperature just right, we can get the lighting just right, employees will be much happier. They'll be healthier if you take the contaminants out, like molds and all the things, the dust, the things that with people with allergies. So if we can make that environment just perfect, employees will be healthier. They'll have less sick days. They will have less absenteeism. They'll have less complaints to the facility manager, and the whole wellness thing is actually starting to ramp up. And people are starting to realize this. So we've actually undertaken a major study, the first phase, which we will give away to anyone. You can put my email on this recording as well. We'll give the executive summary of this, plus that study on productivity.
Nice.
We're moving to phase 2 because we want to show the world that one of the big pillars that we've missed, or we are missing, is how do we treat employees with respect, to keep them as well and healthy as we can. And oh, by the way, they're going to be more productive, and you're going to get much more value out of that than even that you're going to get on the operational savings like energy or on the analytics side. So that's a headwind that we're really moving towards on phase 2, which should be launched this year. And we hope that we can give that away to the industry, because then people can walk into the C-suite and say,
right,
it's not just this pillar, it's not just this pillar. You got 3 big wins here.
Right. Well, and Brad, I want to get your comment on that, but before I do, Ron, what I wanted to say there is, I mean, to get to the C-suite, you better be talking about, how you can have your building be more competitive, because real estate's like everything else, right? You're trying to get maximize the most you can to lease your space out, and by being able to have your tenants' employees be more productive or less sick days, that would get their attention, I think, a lot more than, we got a better control system, or we're this or we're that. So I think if we're going to get the message to the C-suite, it has to be the right message, and the message gets back to it's a business decision. So Brad, are you getting any of your clients, having these sort of conversations about the 330, 300 and focusing on the 300 of their operation side of it more so than the energy side?
Absolutely. And I think a lot of the folks in our group recognize that. It was a concept that we put up on the board when we were talking. HGA has several buildings that are going through certification right now for the WELL standard. And we've got a workplace practice group that really focuses on how are we driving that value to them. And a lot of what we're able to say is that we're able to give you the energy and give you those other efficiencies as a pull through. So, let's focus on making people more productive and happier. Well, they're going to be spending so much time in that office space and that built environment that we're giving them. And so for us, it's about messaging to all those levels, messaging to the C-suite, messaging to the real estate people, to the building operators, and showing all of them how, as we're connecting to the tenants, they all are going to benefit from the same set of tools.
Well, and another thing too, another testament to collaboration is we're seeing metrics appear from different technologies that are proving that 300 metric true. The health industry is coming out saying that people, or the wellness thing that Ron mentioned, that they're healing quicker, they're getting better faster. Students are performing better in school, going through an 8 different scenarios of lighting in the course of a 8-hour period, so that these metrics are coming back. And now it's not just us declaring this great idea. Now they're saying that they're disparaging inner cities because the wealthy neighborhoods out in the suburbs can afford the new lighting and afford this new stuff, where the inner city people with tax bases are different. They will be the last ones to get the benefits of this new understanding of the 300 metric. So this is really good stuff, and I think it's all moving quickly. And fortunately, we've got this ability to disseminate what we're doing right here on Control Talk now. This will get viewed by thousands of people, and hopefully this messaging gets out as quickly as possible. So it's
I'm loving this conversation. So I want to cycle on and sort of throw some other things out, because I see some other headwinds. I see two big headwinds that we've got collectively. One of them is fear, right? I mean, I think everybody's sort of freaking out because there's so much disruptive technology, and you couple that with the fact that, at least on the building automation side, the majority of the workforce is older, getting ready to retire. There's going to be a huge outflux of people that are probably now just holding on for dear life, just hoping they can make it to the next 3 to 4 to 5 years. So you got fear, not wanting to change, trying to hold on, disruption, people coming in from all other factors. So I think people are really scared. That's one. Now, oddly enough, I think what you were trading on, and this is something we picked up from an integrator in Oklahoma City, Jeff Hout. He called the phase we're in right now, and what he's talking about, we're in the integrity economy. Because if you're talking about co-competition and all these things, opening things up, and Brad, you said it earlier, let's focus on making the pie bigger. Well, to do that, I mean, you have to have knowledge. If you don't have knowledge, you're not even in the game. You have to have skills. If you're not even in the game. But more importantly than that, you have to be impeccable with your integrity. If you're going to co-compete with somebody, you cannot, out of fear for whatever reason, sort of broach that trust. So agree or disagree, guys?
Absolutely agree. I think that message is true at every level. That goes, for us as consultants, for those integrators who are going to be putting things in, and it goes to the manufacturers for the ecosystems that they're creating and making sure that the owner is able to get the best value out of that.
What's your thoughts, Ron?
Oh, absolutely. And that's why in the New Deal for Buildings, the white paper, we talk about service transparency, where everything should be in the open. And that old saying that if you do something really well, a few people will hear about it, but if something bad happens, a lot of people hear about it. So, and that's all it takes sometimes to have an owner, a developer, a builder, a facility manager say, well, I'm not, I've heard some bad things, so I'm not going to get involved. I'm just going to have my traditional standalone systems, which I just have to hang in there a couple more years, as you said, and then there'll be someone else's problem. But the reality is, this is a really exciting time. This is an opportunity for young people to come in because so much will be on IoT, will be on data. And data scientists, and you mentioned, Ken, on cybersecurity, those people coming out of the universities or technical schools with those skills can almost pick their jobs, pick the companies they want to work for, and have 6-figure salaries. That's the need that we have for data specialists, scientists, as well as cybersecurity people. So this is an opportunity for the educational systems, schools, to really bring more people in and to showcase that and put in place curriculum and instructors and professors to teach it. And number two, for us to communicate to this emerging youth that are coming into our industry and saying, what kind of job should I have in the future? Well, this is an exciting area and can be a huge opportunity for them in terms of being employed in a thing that's an industry that's going to be quite exciting.
Well, it makes a difference. It's one of the few industries you can come into and have a direct impact on the environment and get the data to back it up, right?
Exactly. And again, I'll come back to, it's still a matter of, I'm kind of saying it over and over, but we have to somehow get to the C-suite, because those are the decision makers that will make the final call and say, I don't care. This is what I want in our building, because there's value there for the building, value there for the operational cost, value there for the people that are going to work in that building or are coming into it as customers or clients. And so I think, and the Edge building is a great example. If you have heard and seen the Edge building in Amsterdam, that's a classic case of a building that's been there a year and a half and is just deemed one of the most intelligent building, one of the most sustainable buildings, the highest score BREEAM has ever given in Europe. And there's a classic case that we've heard. We had actually Ron Becker on our Intelligent Building Council giving a webinar. In fact, Brad, I know we've got an invite out to you to come on to one of our council meetings as well. But we really showed that that this building has transformed the way buildings can operate and be built. And to give you an illustration, they have actually now shown that it's Pricewaterhouse. It's a Deloitte building, and Deloitte uses it. They have the highest retention rate for all Deloitte buildings in Europe. They have, when there is an opening, they have the highest number of Deloitte people want to move to Amsterdam to that building. Just think about it. If you want to create an environment where you retain your top talent, if you have a building that you want to attract the top talent, what a tremendous, this is another example of how you just don't look at a building as, well, there's the building, we need a building, and we'll just build a dumb building. Let's build a building that really brings, makes our company strong. The construction company has now been so successful, they've created a whole new division within their construction company in Amsterdam to create many more buildings like this. So this is exciting to see, but it's just a small example of when we think of all the millions and millions of buildings in the world, but it's a start.
That's amazing. So your building becomes a way to recruit top talent.
Exactly.
Well said.
So you asked about some headwinds there. I got a couple ideas I'd like to share that are connected to some of the things we're discussing here. And, from our point of view, we see there's definitely that fear, the fear, uncertainty, and doubt that those senior building whisperer engineers have about, I already know how I run this building. I know what I'm comfortable with. And I think we all recognize that a lot of those staffs they've got open positions at a lot of the companies we're working with, and they need to be able to figure out how to find that force multiplier without adding more bodies. And we see that the trends for analytics are going to be a way to be able to support that, but that's a challenge to try and get in and sell to some of these old guard building engineers. And so, and it's nothing against those guys. They're great at doing what they do. We've been encouraging them, bring along some of your newer folks, bring some millennial talent that you have operating your building, include their perspective so that they're going to see things that you're not going to. And it comes from some of this cross mentorship that I know you guys have talked about. And I find that very important. We've got to be learning from everybody. And I tell everybody, I'm very open about, I am not the subject matter expert at many of these things we're talking about. I have my domains, but I really rely on the expertise from everyone. That was a large part of my motivation, bringing this group of smart people together who have taught me an awful lot, that they could share what they've taught me with everybody else in the community. And I'm selfish. I want to be able to learn from what these people are doing. So it's that connecting with the right message to be able to give to those facility managers who are used to what they're used to, and making sure that they understand that there's a lot of value in that data. And that's where we need to learn how to present that, because if you go in there and talk, you're talking last week at Merwin, if you go and talk about the analytics and the data, that's not going to connect, but you need to go and talk about solutions. So we want to work together and work with Kaaba and share all of our information, share all of our research and our data together in a way that we're able to present that. And then for us, that means now we're looking at not only new opportunities, but new audiences. So how are we messaging that when the building operator is not the building owner? How do we message it when we're talking to our Silicon Valley people rather than talking to our Midwest people, because we do support our national practice? And that message has to change. It has to evolve. We need to be nimble and recognize how we're able to leverage the emerging talent that's going to be coming up through the ranks, as well as those people who have that really intimate knowledge of these buildings. The other thing we're seeing that's not so much the headwind, but it's made us say this is the time to try and bring together all these conversations we're having, is that for a long time we've been going and telling people, yes, we can give you these smart buildings, and they say, oh, we love that, and then they get a price tag and go, oh, can't do that. And we're still in a point where I feel like it still costs more than it needs to. And so part of what we're doing with our group is bringing together people so that we already have some relationships. We already understand how everything needs to come together, and hopefully we're finding cost opportunities there. But also we're looking to try and connect with the data sets. And one of the things that I hear all the time, and I firmly believe, just out of gut intuition, is that the value of the data is worth more than the hardware we're putting into the buildings. And every time I ask very smart people about where's that data, they find some creative way of changing the subject on me. So that seems like a dirty little secret that we have, that we're collectively challenged to try and figure out how do we demonstrate that. And so, Ron, maybe that's something I could throw back at you guys. Maybe you have something available already you can share with me. We need to be able to connect that data with all of the people that we're talking with, so that we're all equipped to be able to elevate the industry as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
Well, guys, I tell you what, we're unfortunately running out of time here, but can we get you guys to come back on again? Why don't we try to, let's get you guys together again, and let's update our community on the progress. But in the meantime, we'll have Brad's LinkedIn address where you can reach out to him. We'll have Ron's email address. Ron, thank you for the gracious offer for our Control Trends community, sharing those reports. That is just invaluable. So I can't tell you how much we appreciate that, guys. But I tell you what, with that, okay, I thought Kenny muted himself. So with that, I tell you what, guys, thank you so much.
It's our pleasure. My pleasure to be here. And thank you for the good work both of you do. And Brad, we'll be in touch for sure.
Looking forward to it. Thank you, guys.
All right. Thanks, man. All right, Kenny Smyers, there we go. Another week on Control Talk, now the Smart Buildings videocast and podcast. A special thanks to our guests this week, Stevie G from Optergy, Brad Colt, and Ron Zimmer. The Trace Humberries episode is in the books. We appreciate you guys tuning in, and we will see you next week on Control Talk Now. Until then, remember, be bold, stay in control, stay relevant, and be disruptive.
Indeed, Eric.
Indeed, Kenny Smyers.
Once again you tell the same old story. Yeah. It's all on me, sure to stop with all the doubts. But I can feel a change that's coming.